Good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to really get in front of you as we start to see the market cooling down. I think it's really good to go back to the basics because I haven't covered this topic in a while. And I want to refreshen your tools and polish up your tool sets in terms of your knowledge and understanding and explanations regarding all of these disclosures that are in our transactions. And so I think it's important for all of us realtors to not only understand what they are and the purpose, but it's also good to be able to give background. It's good to be able to provide some understanding to the clients why we got to sign this form, why they have to disclose certain information. And this is really relevant whether you are on the buyer or representing the seller. It does not matter. These are part of the transaction. It's part of our duties and it's a part of our requirements. Whenever there's a seller and a buyer putting together an offer and a deal, it's important to have all the paperwork in line. And I'm going to explain to you when, why, how we use these disclosures, and ultimately the purpose for them. So I'll start with the purpose real quick. The purpose we have all these disclosures, yes, it's a lot of paperwork. Yes, it's a lot of things to read and sign, but the purpose is to have clarity, transparency, as well as it's important as professionals to let the buyers and sellers understand what is part of the property, what are their responsibilities, what are certain duties of the buyer, certain duties of the seller, and how to conduct due diligence and how to conduct investigations. And it'll give reminders, it'll give some sort of language that they're supposed to do something or look out for something. And so that way there's no surprises after the close of escrow, so that there's no ill feelings or my lack of failure to disclose is important, because when I talk to the attorneys out there, the real estate attorneys tell us the number one complaint that brings realtors into a suit of litigation or a complaint is failure to disclose or misrepresentation of the property. And so those two areas are what we can do right now as agents to cover and protect ourselves, the company, and our clients from any future potential liability. Every transaction has potential liability. Even if it's a brand new construction and it's gorgeous, beautifully newly built, there could be liability. For example, I'll give you one example. There's a builder who builds a brand new building. He gets his plans approved by his architect with the city, and they build a 1,805 square feet building home. But guess what? The assessor's office doesn't always talk to the city. They don't see all the plans. And then the county could make their own declaration of what the assessor's square footage of the property, and it could be 1,790 square feet. It could be there could be a discrepancy between even what the county records as square footage and what the city has as the building permits and design. So therefore, because there's a discrepancy of square footage, which square footage should you use? The assessor's or the builder's plans? And that falls under, you can use both of them, but what you need to do is you need to be able to disclose properly why and what kind of, with your evidence or background. And I'll explain this a little bit future in the class. So that's the preface of introduction of today's disclosure class. I really hope you can stick around because I think you'll learn something new. So I took the liberty already to go ahead and download a bunch of disclosures. And I'm going to go start sharing my screen once I get this through. So hold on tight. And I'm going to pull these up. Any questions you guys have right now? Okay, so give me a second. Okay, here we go. This forms are pulled up, and I'm not going to go in a particular order, except I'm trying to go from start to finish on what you're going to see in the disclosures. So hopefully you guys can see my screen right now. And I'll try to make this a little bit bigger so we can kind of go through this. And let me see if I can do this full screen. There we go. All right, so one of the first things I want to do is share with you the company checklist. So let me start actually going back into my share screen mode. And in here, we can see, let me exit the full screen. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'll show you the checklist in a second. The every transaction has what's called a buyer and a seller, who are the parties to the contract. And when there is parties to the contract, you know, it labels them as a buyer and seller and whatnot. So each party has, you know, certain duties, and all of them have the duties to read what they're signing. Okay. Now, whenever you sell real estate, we always know that the price of a property is not necessarily the price that it appraises for. It is not the price of what the next door neighbor sells for. Each property is unique. Each property has its own features, its own upgrades and renovations over the years, as well as its own floor plan and materials being used. So because there's differences in the type of property in terms of the condition of the property, there's also differences in the market conditions. And that could differ not only from 1 year to the next year, but it could also differ from the hot summer months to the cool winter time as well. So what I mean is a lot of people are shopping during the summer months because that's prior to the school year. And it's a lot slower during Christmas time. Not many people are focused on buying a house. They're focused on family and gatherings and vacations and company parties. So because of that, the conditions could change even from 1 month like July, from the next month to August of 2021. And we witnessed this to this year, where the July month was super hot, peak, and lots of activity, tons of offers due to limited inventory. And all of a sudden, we start seeing a rise of inventory. We see a little bit of a cool down in the market in August and up until now, September. We're noticing a little bit of a cool down, exactly how I predicted this a couple of months ago when I put my video out in July, beginning of July, that I expect a cool down. So given this fact, this is what this disclosure is for. It is saying that the real estate market is very cyclical. It can change over time. And it is impossible for realtors, even for economists like myself, or for any CEO or any other industry analyst, to predict exactly how the future market will be with guaranteed accuracy. Because we cannot predict and guarantee things, we have to let the buyers and sellers know that things will fluctuate based upon the conditions of a market, whether it's a seller's hot market or whether it's a buyer's market or anything in between. We must understand that timing is important. And if you have a short escrow, like in 21 days escrow period, of course, you're probably in the same market as when you originally offered. But if you structured a 6-month escrow period, then guess what? That beginning of the offer period, the market could have gone up or it could have gone down during that 6 months. So there could be people, whether it's the seller or the buyer, who gets regret. There's a lot of things that could happen and fluctuate or over time. So therefore, that is one of the concerns you have when you structure a long escrow period or a future close date. And so generally speaking, when you're in a limited inventory market, that is a seller's typical market because there's not much where buyers can shop around for. There's not much they can check out and write offers on. Therefore, you're going to have 15, 20 plus offers on the same home when there's a limited inventory market like we had during the pandemic. So, and not only is that, there's things about foreclosures and short sale markets where we experienced that in 2008, 9, 10. And those distressed properties technically it's very cyclical. The market goes up, it goes down, just like the stock market. And all this really wants to share is that the buyer should consider what their offering price shall be. It is the buyer themselves fully responsible for determining the offer price they want to buy a home. The brokers, the agents, we can provide them the comparable CMA markets analysis. We could provide them data, facts, comps, show them other properties is what I recommend, show them the competition. But we should not be setting that price saying, oh, the price is $700,000. You should offer $720,000 because I heard there's lots of offers and they told me they had 720. So therefore you should beat it or match it. It's up to them. If you hear they have 720, you can still let them know, well, there is a party, according to the listing agent, who told me they have 5 offers. The highest one they have is 720, but it's up to you. What do you want to write the offer at? Make sure this is done in writing. Make sure you let them in writing. You give them the option to respond back what they want to offer and just give them guidance. Give them some price per square foot. Give them some comps, and then they could set the price. I don't like setting the price myself as an agent because, I told them, you told me to offer 720, Kelvin. I didn't get the home. And then they blame me for setting that price that I told them to do. And then I get the blame that they loved the home. So I don't want any of that blame. I say, I can't set this price. It's up to you. I would say you should be in the 720,000 ballpark if you want to be in line with the other offers. And you could put 721,000, you could put more. It's really up to you. Please read this market conditions because I don't want you to have that regret or that buyer's remorse and put that blame on me if they happen to get another offer that happens to be 730,000 over the weekend. It's possible. Someone else counters them back or someone else throws in an offer tomorrow that's higher. So that's why it's important to explain this and let them know. One of the biggest things I don't want you to do is to write a non-contingent offer. In this hot market, many buyers were choosing or ill-advised by their broker to write a non-contingent offer. And that creates a situation where your buyer's deposit is fully at risk when you write a non-contingent offer. And if they don't get the appraisal value or they don't get the loan financing ready by the close of escrow period, it's possible they lose their entire deposit. And so therefore, don't just write in the boxes and check the boxes where you think that's what the seller wants to see. I get it. The seller wants to see non-contingent offers, but you're not protecting the seller. You're representing the buyer. In this situation, you should guide them, let them know that, well, unless you're all cash, I can't see you being able to guarantee your loan is going to be in place. But if you want to do it, that's up to you. I need to put something in writing called acting against broker advice that you understand the risks of writing a non-contingent offer. And I have to put in writing that I don't agree with this offer, but I'm your agent and I'll follow your instruction. Just need to sign this form for the protection of myself and the company in the event that your financing doesn't come true that you believe you have 99% faith in. So therefore, that's what we do, let them know and to read it. I never recommend no inspection contingencies on a property unless that buyer has the full intentions to tear it down and rebuild. Okay. Otherwise, if they're not rebuilding, every home could have deferred maintenance. There could be some due diligence where there's some unpermitted areas, or there's mold within the walls, or the bathrooms are terrible and there's a smell. There's a lot of things that could be harmful or defective. That's why you get a home inspection performed. And therefore, if they choose to write a non-contingent offer, we can follow their instruction, but that's acting against our advice. I'd still rather have a 5, 7, 10-day inspection period just to give me that time to get a home inspector out there and give me some bullet points of where there are defects that I'm going to have to fix. Even if I'm an experienced flipper, I don't want to remove my inspection contingency because there could be some areas that I overlooked on my initial visit to the home. So there could be stuff in the walls. There could be a mice rodent issue up on the roof. There could be a defective leaks everywhere in the house, and it causes me to spend more on my remodel than I anticipated because I didn't be able to conduct my due diligence. So let them know this is why we have this form, and the seller really is only considering one thing: the asking price for their property, using comps from brokers and the CMA for the neighborhood sales. It is the seller's decision to decide how much to ask for the property, setting that price, even though they always ask the realtor, what do you recommend we price it at? That's why I give a range, you guys. I write 750 to 800,000. And it depends on how aggressive and how fast you want to sell it. If you want to get lots of offers to choose from and pick the best one with lots of activity, we price it closer to 750. And if you want to try your price, you really want to make sure you get 800 or nothing or nothing, then I'll follow your advice at 800. There'll be less activity and offers. But ultimately, my job is to set the price to drive activity. That's the purpose of setting the price for us. The buyer signs here, the seller signs here. Any questions? Straightforward. The next form we use in our transactions for residential 1 to 4, I use is called the Statewide Buyer and Seller Advisory. The buyer has been advised of their rights and duties to understand that the physical condition is not guaranteed. They should conduct a thorough investigation. They should hire professionals who recommend further inspections, like a electrician or a roofer or a plumber. So these experts can consult them on how much it's going to cost to repair this and this and that. And if you have written reports from others who prepared them, there could be discrepancies between the reports. Like the home inspector could say the wood looks good, and then the termite guy says, no, there's some wood rot over here. There could be discrepancy between third-party reports. It could happen where one person might be a little bit more diligent than the other. And the seller has the rights to cancel the agreement if the buyer doesn't perform. The buyer has the right to request the seller make corrections. But in bold and right here, the seller is not obligated to respond to any repair requests, corrections, or actions. So you can send a request. They could say, got it, received, and they do not have to give you a formal response to your repair request. And the buyer seller advised to seek legal, tax, and other assistance from appropriate professionals like 1031 exchange professionals, or from an architect or designer or a person who's going to help them build an ADU. These professionals should advise in their specific areas. We're here for the transaction, for the middleman, middlewoman involved in helping through the escrow and the paperwork. Okay, So you are advised to investigate the condition and all aspects of the property. If you're not doing so, you are acting against the advice of brokers. The seller has the duty to disclose material known defects and facts about the property or the desirability. You are obligated to make the property available during the inspection period and have all the utilities on. They got to prepare the transfer disclosure statement and answer all the specific questionnaires in its entirety. They shouldn't leave areas blank or skip some questions because they didn't know the answer. They got to fill the whole thing out. And they got to read the terms of the agreement and know their rights and responsibilities, and they could seek their own professionals as well. These are where the brokers have their rights. And we do not have experience in all areas regarding real estate. I'm not a land or survey specialist. I'm not trained as an appraiser. So therefore, I shouldn't be being able to appraise a home. I'm not qualified to tell you where the lot lines or the survey boundary lines are, or how much or what the cities will allow you to build. Those are all duties that the architect contractor can help them with. So we just have a duty to do a visual inspection of the areas and disclose the facts and defects that we see. And there's many defects and conditions that may not be discovered by a broker's visual inspection, such as things beneath the walls or underneath. We're not required to go to the attic. We're not required to go to the basement. And any reports that could be conflicting, broker has not and will not verify other people's reports or investigate the information contained in those reports. It's not our duty or responsibility to be responsible or held liable for someone else who says that there's a termite, or there's someone else who says there's mold, or someone who says there's bed bugs. So any written agreement between a broker or buyer or seller, this blah, 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 blah. So this is a long 14-page document. And here you can see, these are the paragraphs where you can find the inventory by alphabetical order. And if I'm concerned about home warranty, I'll go to paragraph 26. If I want to know about legal action against the other party, I'll go to paragraph 31. I'm not going to read this whole thing for you, but this is a mandatory form for single family 1 to 4, and letting the buyers and sellers know there are physical conditions that they should investigate, such as easements, access, encroachments, boundary lines, survey lines, power poles, utility easements where they can come in and do some work on the pole in the backyard. There's our environmental hazards such as mold, fungus, mildew, lead-based paints, asbestos, radon, gases. All this stuff could be hazardous materials toxic to homes, especially if, for example, your home is located right next door to a gas station. Guess what? That soil very well could be contaminated. Or if you're next to an industrial zone or whatnot, okay? Now, there's things called formaldehyde. This is a cancerous material that could be in some homes. There's geological hazards such as earthquakes. You could be on a fault line. Like in Northridge, they had a fault earthquake in the early 90s. And so we can be responsible for natural disasters such as these geological hazards, or if you were built on the hillside and there happens to be a lot of heavy rain and there's a mudslide, or there's liquefaction, or even worse, in Malibu, the whole bluff, the cliff fell apart and homes just went down the mountain because they were right on a mountain range, right on the bluff. So the inspections are there for the buyers and sellers to conduct their own investigation and then hire a professional to investigate. So tells them about, hey, there could be mold, and there are mold in every home, but some of them is toxic mold when there's a big collection of spores, typically in the bathrooms caused by water leaks or moisture that's not removed or dried up. Many times you'll see mold because the bathroom does not have an exhaust fan ventilation system. So therefore the ceiling you'll see has black marks. They got to get rid of that mold or open the window every time they shower. There are pets and animals, and we don't know what the odors could be coming from. There could be urine in the carpet and feces in the beneath the floors. So old homes, I'm sure it's passed through many homeowners and there's been pets inside. Some homes have septic systems or wells or septic tanks in the ground. They need maintenance as well. They need to be changed out, cleaned out every couple of years, and you got to change it. And some of the metal deteriorates after X amount of years, like 30 or 40 years for a septic tank. There are geological conditions in the soil. There could be some drainage issues, or every ground has something called groundwater beneath that could cause, or sand that could cause the home to slip, slide, or sink, like a liquefaction zone. Square footage, lot size, boundaries. Yep. The lot size boundary lines, those are not guaranteed by us. We don't know where they exactly lie unless there's a marker on the sidewalk or on the street. And it's been previously surveyed in the past. And fences may not be built exactly on the boundary line. So you gotta let them know it could or could not be really on that fence is a separator. Water intrusion is the biggest issue of most homes' defects and problems. So when there's water intrusion, especially to the wood and water do not mix well. It's going to deteriorate. It's going to allow termites to come through and bugs and rot and mildew, and could cause the home to deteriorate if it's not treated well or maintained. Blah, 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 blah. There's termites in every California home. There's now a requirement for fire home hardening and defensible space in case of you're in a high or very high severity fire zone. You could check the mapping systems or your NHD report to see if you are in a high fire zone. And there's other things to check regarding the usage of the property, like, can I build an ADU? Can I build and get permits? Or does my zoning allow for a second unit? Am my property fully in compliance? I don't know. You got to pull permits and check with the city and have them come out or pull the history. So that's where this all goes through. I'm going to let you know there's a bunch of different language in here. The reason why there's all these language in here is because I tell you each of these paragraphs are created and built into this SBSA disclosure all in one, encompassing, because in the past in California, there was some sort of legal matter, complaint, litigation that caused CAR to make a disclaimer language added to our contracts disclosures. If you compare us to any other state in the United States, our forms and disclosures are the most comprehensive, the most protective, and the most paperwork than anywhere else. Maybe California is a highly litigious state, and therefore, because there's lots of lawsuits, there's a lot of defense we need. There's a lot of language and paperwork we need to cover our butts. So that's what one of this purposes is, that, hey, people could grow marijuana in California legally, and they could be some harmful things in there, mold or disclosures or water. So because it's allowed recreationally and each homeowner could build 6 plants within their home, there's many people out there doing it, okay? So there's also rent control areas, eviction areas, there's retrofit standards, and the building requirements are always, every year, they kind of add small things here and there where there could be requirements and new code where your old home is still grandfathered, but if you're going to build something new or add a bedroom to your house or bathroom, when you pull permits, they might ask you to upgrade the rest and retrofit the rest of the home. One of the examples that recently was done was the water conserving plumbing devices that require all homes to have a low flow water conserving plumbing device for shower heads, for toilets, and whatnot. Okay. So as you go by, and you can see all of this language goes to buyers and sellers, talking even about the neighborhood. You know, and what, that's, I'm buying a property. I'm not buying a golf course. I'm not buying a school. You're not. But yeah, a school could have a lot of children that pass by your front sidewalk, and they could throw and fall on your sidewalk because you didn't maintain your yard, and they could sue you because there's such trip hazard. You could have a bunch of trash and litter or noise from the golf. One of my old homes I lived in was near a golf course, and once a year or twice a year, we might have a broken window from an errant golf ball that someone else just made a bad swing, and the ball came flying at my window. So therefore, they should know even about coastal properties that the sea level of the Pacific Ocean is rising due to global warming. Guess what? In 100 years, if they don't do anything, Santa Monica and many of these coastal communities within 1 mile of the coast will be underwater. That is why they're trying to add extra funds to build a seawall along the Pacific Ocean to preserve those homes by the beach. There's people that could have death on the property. There's fire hazards, there's flood hazards. There's hazards everywhere in California, except we don't get tsunamis. We don't get some of those bigger things like hurricanes. So that's one of the good things about California. We just get earthquakes, we get termite, we get fires. So just letting you know what this form is for. I'm not going to spend all the time, but guess what? It's important to read it as an agent because you're the one who's going to be explaining it time after time, transaction after transaction. Why not read every document so that you know what it means, right? So go ahead and take a look at it. If you have any other local advisories or disclosures, you could check them off over here. And one of them I'll show you is, I'll give you an example. Oops. Let me stop the share. Let me go back into my screen, exit this full page. I don't know how to exit out of this. All right. I'll show you at the end when I can get there. So let me get back into my share screen mode. Now that's the area for the buyer and seller to sign, and go ahead and you sign below where you are and the other agent as well. California in 2020 voted, the people voted that residents should be able to control and understand their rights of what information, whether it's private or personal, is being collected by various companies and what they do with their data. That's why you see in every everything you technology you use right nowadays, there is a California Consumer Privacy Act advisory language in their contracts or paperwork. Just like our business, we collect data as well. So they have the right to understand what information is being collected. That's what this form is for. It's in every single purchase agreement contract. And for example, we as a broker for a seller are going to collect their information regarding the property. We're going to publish it in the MLS, and we're going to share photos of the home. We're going to share details about the property condition, square footage, and this and this and that. And if we put their stuff in, I want to let you know, at least as a brokerage firm, we do not data share our clients' information, their phone numbers or email. Their sensitive personal information is nothing that I as a broker sell. I do not share it or give it away or do this and this and that. And I believe in that kind of philosophy, even though there's many companies out there like Amazon and Google who will share your data to others for profit. Okay. Let them know, they sign below and whatnot. You'll see this in every single family transaction as well. This is the agency disclosure form. The seller's agent has a duty to be fiduciary, to be caring for with integrity, honesty, and loyalty in all dealings with the seller. To the buyer and the seller, they have the responsibility to be honest and fair dealing and acting in good faith, and to disclose all known facts to the agent about the desirability of their property and to do their own exercise of reasonable skill and care, due diligence. And so The buyer's agent, yes, they show properties, they open the doors, and they write the offers, but they also have to be and held to a high standard as a professional. And it is allowed in California to be a dual agent. So same thing, we just got to give both parties the same fiduciary respect, honesty, and good faith, all that good stuff that we do anyways. Okay. So they sign here. This is required in every transaction to provide a agency disclosure form. And then the back page just has all the small fine print. Go ahead and read that as you like, and sign, sign, sign. One of the next things that's always required in the offers is called the Fhda, Fair Housing and Discrimination Advisory. This is nothing new, guys. We've been dealing with discrimination since the beginning of America, where the British fought against and they were the colonists were fighting against the Indians and taking away their land. Then the British and the Americans had their own Revolutionary War. And that's based on not only taxes, but it's also has some discrimination and who belongs to, what race and ethnicity. And that's since the beginning of time, there's always been some of this, but not until the 1900s did we as Americans start building some policy and laws regarding discrimination. I'm very happy to see that the Fair Housing Act of 1963 is not listed in here, but I happen to be a history buff. This tells you that you cannot discriminate in sales, rental, or financing of residential housing against protected classes. What's a protected class? Can anyone give me an example of what is a protected class? Well, it's right in front of you guys. You guys are quiet. Protected classes are right here outlined below. You cannot discriminate anyone based upon their race, color, ancestry, origin, religion, sex, sexual orientation, like I'm a male, but I actually wish I was a female, so I dress this way. Their gender identity, gender expression, marital status, familial status, like I'm married, I'm divorced, I'm single, none of that matters. You shouldn't write anything like, oh, this is great home for a family. That's actually kind of steering to a family. So that's discrimination. Don't write that in your descriptions. You cannot discriminate on the source of income, like if their income is coming from Section 8 or government assistance, or whether they have a disability. Like, I don't want to sell this property to you because you're handicapped and I want to see this home going to someone that's, anyway, none of that can be done. Medical condition, like, or citizenship, primary language, none of that stuff you see here should not be a factor or reason why you deny or reject someone who wants to buy or sell or lease. Get it? Got it? Good. There's also other Fair Employment and Housing Acts that discusses discrimination, UNRRA, Civil Rights Act, and the American Disabilities ADA Act, as well as other fair housing laws that have been passed over the years. So just understand, read this through. Please, please, please show this to your sellers, because we as realtors are held to a high standard. We cannot discriminate, but at the same time, the sellers, they shouldn't be discriminating as well, but it's up to them who they select as a buyer seller. But don't in your dealings and communications, don't answer their questions when they say, oh, is this person Chinese? Is this person of the same as me? Is this person speak my language? None of that matters. You just say, I cannot answer that question. That's a violation for fair housing. I'm sorry. Please read this form. I cannot answer these questions based on these areas here. Okay. Oh, is this person a female, male, blah, 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 blah. None of that matters. Don't answer that. Don't even give them an opportunity. Just shut it off, cut off that conversation, go and move on to something else. Now, when I talk about other disclosures, we're talking about the PRBS. I'm just going to answer this really quickly. This is attached to every contract because if you're writing an offer on a property, guess what? You could also be representing multiple buyers. For example, I've written for multiple buyers on the same property. Okay, it was a very nice property, a very low price, and I had two different parties ask me to write an offer on it. And so I followed them and I let them know, I guess what, I'm writing an offer for someone else. You're also writing an offer for you, but I'm going to keep everything confidential. So if you're going to do that, go ahead. It's not necessary to be confidential. I am keeping everything confidential because I think that's respectful. Now, if you're dealing with a FHA or a veteran who's getting a VA loan, this form is a requirement to make sure that the only thing you need to fill out is that whether the property does or does not have a minimum appraised value that you need in order to get that loan approved. So that's the minimum appraisal value that you can accept to make sure you get your loan approved. Typically for VAs who have 0% down, they need the full purchase price to appraise. Now, this form here is a new form, just created in May 2021. It's the Fire Hardening and Defensible Space Advisory. I want to spend some time on this one because it's important to understand this applies to every transaction that requires a TDS and that they are located in a high or very high fire zone. There needs to be this disclosure sharing to them that they're going to have to create and be in compliance with defensible space. Basically, that just means that the materials in their yard or the eaves on their home are flame retardant. They're not going to combustible materials are not around the exterior to create even further burning of a fire. So that's what defensible space is needed to really make sure the building code of the areas in high fire zones are upgraded to prevent a local wildfire. And if it's not in a home fire zone, go ahead and check off part B. And like I said, the eaves and the roof and combustible materials are items that should be preventative in measures to prevent any fire spread. And you could check the box if there's no local ordinances in place. Got it? That's where they sign here. And this is a form only required when you're dealing with a homeowners association. If you have a CC&R HOA in your sale, like a condominium, then go ahead and attach this form to let the buyer know they also have a duty to review the HOA docs, to read the minutes, to read the history of the areas, where the financial health of the HOA is, because that is something that's outside my control. I don't run the governing documentation of the HOA, and there could be certain rules they have. They could vote that there's no short-term rentals in the property, no Airbnb allowed. They could have no pets policy. They could have a quiet hours or different rules and regulations that affect the desirability of the home. So therefore, let them read it, the financials, read the reserves, because it could be a reason why the loan doesn't get approved, because maybe the HOA has undergone some sort of current litigation or pending litigation. There could be different things that affect the desirability, like you don't even have parking spaces and you think there's parking there, but guess what? Maybe there's some places like in downtown, you only buy the condo, you have to purchase a parking space monthly, or you can purchase storage areas. So therefore, just letting you know, each HOA is run independently and they should read the forms and documentation. There's many times a buyer wants to write an offer on a home. They love it. It looks great on the outside. And they say, it's a brand new home, or it's only 2 years old. I don't need to do a home inspection. That's up to them. It's their right to waive their right to conduct a due diligence inspection. So if they waive it, let them know they have the right to do one at their own expense. If they waive it, go ahead and initial and sign here. Buyer decided not to obtain a general home inspection, even though it's strongly recommended by agents to do so, even if it's brand new construction. The buyer may also waive the termite waiver because they, it probably doesn't, it looks good. Maybe it's new and doesn't, the wood is not that damaged. So it's possible, but older homes typically do have some sort of termite work needed. And it's okay. It's not gonna, you're not gonna see a house fall down and like just like that. It takes years and years and years of like 20 decades for a termite to be able to eat enough wood for that house to fall down. But we don't want to wait to that point where the house is that bad. Usually you want to fumigate, get rid of the termites so that you can stop them from and treat the wood that has been chewed up, especially for old homes built back in the 1940s, 50s, or older. This is the strongest form. I don't even care where you represent the buyer or the seller. Get this in every transaction, guys. Just go ahead and let the buyer and sellers know. Buyer, you have the right and duty to exercise reasonable care to protect yourself, including discovery, including disclosed facts or things that you are observed or hard to find. You have the ability to conduct investigations in so many different areas, not just the number one, which vast majority only conduct a home inspection report. The number two most common is the wood destroying termite report that we just talked about. Other than these two reports, 90–80% of the transactions, the buyers are not doing any of these other forms of optional investigations, which could be harmful to their own future well-being when, for example, the electrical things break down, or the HVAC system breaks down, or they get a leak because they failed to scope the main line and they found out that there's tree rots branches that are damaging the main line, or whether there's bathroom leaks because there hasn't been changing the seal underneath the shower or the gasket underneath the toilet. So therefore, there are many areas that have mold and we can't see it, but if they don't conduct these inspectors to come out, that's not on us. That's on the buyers who fail to do their own investigations. So you let them know, let them check the boxes that they will perform, and they sign below. That is so powerful. When I talk to the real estate attorneys, if they fail to check the zoning and they said and blame and sue the agents because the agent says you can get an ADU, but they fail to check zoning laws and fail to check the lot size or get an architect to advise them on the possibility of an ADU, then at least you have protection here that it's not really your responsibility to guarantee the accuracy of information that was on the MLS saying that it has ADU potential. Okay. So if you find that there are other areas that you think they should check out, such as, let's say I know there's a gas station next door. Okay. I have a feeling that there could be contamination in the soil. So I would recommend them get a soil contamination report. Okay, that's an example of something that's listed here, that's not listed here, but I want to make sure I advise them they should get one. This is the form you can use. Do you guys have any questions right now? I'll pause and answer anything that I covered. Anything at all? Okay, let me continue on. I haven't even got into the big stuff. Buyer material issues are areas here where the buyer, I like this form because also prevents liability. So if there are certain things, like I find that there's a lot line dispute on the fencing and I don't think it's built on the right area or whatnot, or we are second guessing the discrepancy of square footage on the property between the county and the city records, well, then I'll go ahead and write them down here. and that there are certain investigations, or I advise them to hire a land surveyor or hire a certain what you call a tape measure, or what are they called? The appraiser, someone to measure the square footage. These are the areas where they can be advised that they had a concern here, and they should be seeking a professional to get them through overcoming whatever it is they have a material issue with. Lead-based paint is an area where this disclosure is standard and required for anything built prior to 1978, because the paint used in older homes could contain lead. Just like you see in gas stations, they say unleaded gas. Well, there used to be lead in the gas, just like there used to be lead in the paint. And we don't know if there's been any remediation in the history. They're supposed to disclose if the seller did so, but a lot of times there's a lack of disclosure, or there's a missing link to the chain of title, where maybe someone did a lead-based paint remediation back in the 80s, but it's transferred hands 4 times, and now all of that evidence or history is lost. So therefore, it's advised, whether you have or do not have knowledge, the seller's got to share this information, and the buyer is supposed to read the Protect Your Home from Lead, Earthquake Environmental Safety booklets. All right, people sign, let them know. You could have sex offenders, registered sex offenders next door to your home, and you can find them at this website here. This is a form for them to check out, especially if they're living in an HOA. You'll be surprised to see how many sex offenders are registered next to your own home right now, because it stays in the history for a long time. Even if that seller sells and that sex offender was next door to you, it kind of still shows a flag, even when there's a new homeowner that came by who's not a sex offender. This form is used every time you have a well on the property, or a septic tank, or a propane tank underground, and you want to have some sort of, or a monument like a survey or other things. Then if you have pumps on there, where's the location? Let them know, give them a map, let them know the area where they should do the clean out valve. Okay. And use this form for every transaction when you have any of those types of septic, propane, or monuments. I love this form whenever there's a discrepancy, and there's so many discrepancies between county and city records. So go ahead and fill it out to let the buyers know, because this is where people are getting liability, guys. They write that the public record shows only 1,000 square feet, but the MLS says 1,025 square feet. And the seller, he claims that he built the patio that's permitted, but so it's actually 1,300 square feet, but the seller doesn't know and can't provide the permits. Well, go ahead and provide all those discrepancies and attach any records or evidence or reports. Here, I would check the realist profile report and attach it. Here, I'll give a copy of the listing agent's MLS to let them know what the discrepancy that they put out as the square footage. And then we can also look at the appraiser's square footage, and they measured it using their own little tape measure roller, and they can give them this square footage. So through every discrepancy you have, even if the architectural or the floor plan drawings are different, then go ahead and show the evidence and let the buyer know. Therefore, you prevent your liability regarding the buyer saying in the future, I didn't know my home. My agent told me it's 1,200. He didn't tell me the public record was this. He didn't tell me that the discrepancy, blah, blah, blah. These buyers will find any excuse to shift blame to you because their attorney will advise them to. So in that situation, you protect yourself by giving all the information of where you're finding these sources and discrepancies, and these attorneys won't be able to touch you when you give in this form out with the evidence. Okay, very important. The TDS is required for every 1 to 4 single family transaction, 1 to 4 units. And you're going to use this because it's a requirement statutory disclosure to disclose anything you know defective about the property even if the seller is not living on the property. So maybe the seller used to live there 10 years ago, and currently they are not occupying the property. It's been rented ever since. Well, they still know certain information. They'll know if they've made any repairs to the property. They'll know if there's any leak repairs or the requests from the tenant to let them know that there's a broken HVAC, or this, they need to fix the cooling fins or whatever it is that's going on. They should provide those letters or correspondences with things, and also supply the receipts, invoices of paid invoices of who they did the work with. Show that you're acting in good faith, giving information and telling the truth. You check off the boxes, not you, the agent. The seller checks off these boxes, because the seller is the one going to be filling out this information, not you, the realtor. You could be sitting there next to them, helping them, answering their questions with them, but I don't want you putting your handwriting in here. You should not be filling this out. It's the seller's duty. This is their responsibility, because I don't want them to come back to us in the future where the buyer says, you told me that there is sprinklers on the property and I just checked. They're all broken. They're not working. And you disclosed that they're all working in good condition. You did not check the box no, that they're not working and not operable. Therefore, I'm suing you to give me brand new sprinklers. Plus, I want you to do my landscaping because all the trees and the flowers died. That's just one example, guys. I've seen so many. I need you to make sure the sellers are just clearing. And if there's anything is not working, you check the box. Yes, let them know. Give them sheets. Add more paperwork saying that the HVAC is broken, or the rain gutters have dents, or the central heater doesn't really warm everywhere. It's very old, likely needs to be replaced. Let them know that there's, any issues. This is where, how do I tell the seller? I tell the seller, look, seller, I'm your protecting here. I'm protecting you and yourself from any future liability. Once the sale is over, I don't want any problems in the future. The way we do this is we do it right in the beginning. Anything that you know about the property, about its history, about any defects, this is your opportunity to relieve yourself from any of that liability. All you got to do is share the information that, but Kelvin, I don't want to tell them that my tenant used to grow marijuana. It's going to scare them away. Yeah, it would. It might. But I'd rather you tell them now than them finding out that there was a marijuana grower here and their neighbor tells them, oh, you bought this house? Did you know the previous tenant used to grow plants? There was cops here everywhere. The police took all these plants away. What? The seller didn't tell you? Oh, they get angry at this time. So they get the attorneys involved. They sue the seller for failure to disclose, misrepresentation, and you're going to be pulled into this lawsuit as well. So let them know it's better safe than sorry. I don't care if you're scaring a buyer away. I'd rather you let them know the truth and let them decide if they want it or not. Okay. Any questions so far? The seller should share any defects, malfunctions in the ceilings, walls, floors, exterior, roof. This is everything, guys. If there's any defects, even to the smallest, oh, there's a crack on the driveway, it could be a trip hazard. Disclose it. Oh, my neighbor built a wall 1 inch on my property line. I told them we're friends. I let him do it. Disclose it. Let them know that you gave permission to build that wall of 1 inch. Even, it's so negligible, but guess what? Disclose it. Do you have knowledge? This is your opportunity to share it. Use this form, attach additional sheets if necessary. Oh, yeah, my plumbing, sometimes I have a low water pressure, or sometimes there's been a backflow from the sink. I don't know what it is. Should I disclose it? I fixed it. I hired Roto-Rooter the last month. It should be okay. Well, you should disclose. there was a backflow incident in 2018 and 2012 in the kitchen sink. We fixed it. Here's our receipt from Roto-Rooter in 2016 and 18. Boom. You're not responsible for this in the future. You already disclosed that they should spend some time to look into the kitchen sink. Here's where you say yes or no if there's any room additions, modifications, things done without a permit or built out of code. And so give them all the information. Say yes when there is a CCNR or an HOA. Answer the questions to their entirety, to the truth. Any questions?
Kevin, I have one question.
Yes.
The open patio in the backyard. My client said when he bought it, they already existing there, but later he add a little more, like become more bigger the open patio in the backyard. But have to disclose because that one maybe no need meet.
Well, I'll tell you this. I would disclose that because did he pull a permit is my first question.
No, he didn't get permit because that one no need. It's backyard open patio. It's not closed patio.
You still are supposed to pull a permit for a open patio.
Still need a permit?
Yeah.
From city?
Yep.
Really?
So I would disclose on number 4, yes. Seller purchased the property back in 2012, and the previous seller shared that they constructed this patio in the back without permit. In 2016, I expanded it 1 foot and added an extra layer of patio without permit as well. Buyer to investigate and satisfy themselves with the and appreciate the patio.
Wow,
okay?
we didn't do that.
I would do it because he did alteration. If he didn't know, if he didn't do it himself, I would still disclose that I purchased this, and the seller told me that it was done without a permit, and I would give him a copy. I would say attach additional sheets right here. See previous TDS from when I purchased the property back in 2012. So then I'm not held liable for what the previous seller did. I already shared it to them. I got it this way.
So you mean the open patio in the backyard still needs permit?
Still needs to be permitted. It becomes part of the structure.
Oh.
But many people do it without permit. I'm just telling you, it's supposed to be permitted. It's kind of like saying many people speed on the freeway. Does that mean it's allowed and lawful? Nope. You're supposed to follow the speed limit. Right? All right. This is where I have the opportunity as a broker of the seller. If the seller failed to disclose something, I can save the day using my AVID and disclose everything that I witness and see on a property. And for example, the seller says, I don't want to disclose that my neighbor has 10 dogs and they're noisy. Okay, it's not my property. I don't live there. Do I have to disclose this? And they go, I don't want to disclose that there's noisy dogs next door, but I could. So I'll check the box. I'll go do my visual inspection room by room. And then I'm under the neighborhood area, which I'll show you right here. This is where I do the AVID. I'll write all the defects and marks and scratches and dents of everything I can see and witness, and leaks and yellow stainings, all the dark stainings in the bathrooms that could be mold. I don't describe it as mold. I just say a black furry substance is growing or on the ceiling or something like that on the north wall. Okay, anyway, I'm just saying don't make a definitive claim. Describe the color of what you describe what you see and the size, but don't try not to add a lot of adjectives in your descriptions. So then I would write something like other observers. I would say, oh, property is in a single family neighborhood. A next door neighbor appears to have some noisy dogs when I was visiting. Okay, that boom, you saved the day by throwing it in here. And this could be for anything. It could be for the golf balls in a golf community. It could be that the neighbor is encroaching and parking their car on their side of the driveway, and there's a shared driveway. There's stuff like this that you could throw in here. Okay. Now, at the end,
Kevin,
yes.
can I say in the other, and like the neighbor have one tree and is climb over the fence and maybe touch the roof. Can I also write like that?
Yeah. So either the exterior building and yard, or here, you could say neighbor's tree is mature, and some of the branches are over or hanging above our property, above the property line. Yeah.
But what about the buyer side saying, oh, then the seller need to cut the tree, and that's the neighbor or whatever. So it's have more thing to do, I think.
Well, that's where you go back to the SBSA. You look at the table of contents, and I believe there's a section on trees and maintenance. I can't find it. I'll send it to you later when offline, but there is a section either in the purchase contract or here regarding trees. Okay, and it technically, you can ask the neighbor to pay to trim it, but the buyer themselves, the owner, if it falls on your property line, you have the absolute right to trim the trees on your side of the fence. And you have the rights to all the fruits on your side of the fence as well. Okay.
Okay.
And that's something that's very minimal. That shouldn't affect the home too much. You know, they can there's not usually too many complaints about trees. That's a neighborly dispute. Not, you know, we're real estate agents. We're not here to be responsible for that kind of stuff. So we just let them know they can hire an attorney, and then they can trim all the trees and do this and this, and they can try to get the seller next door and sue them to pay for it. Normally it's just done friendly. Now, the next mandatory statutory disclosure is called the SPQ. This is the opportunity for the seller also to disclose any known defective things or history about the property, and whether or not there's a death in the last 3 years, or any nuisances or commercial industrial zones, or illegal substances beneath the property, or insurance claims like water leaks, or they had a water intrusion in the bathroom, stuff like that. So material facts or defects not disclosed to buyer. You can say yes. This is where you can say tenant grew marijuana. This is where you could say I had someone come look at the roof. They told me it was good, but I've been having roof leaks, and I tried to do an insurance claim, and they denied my claim. You could write and provide any evidence or letters from the insurance carrier or anything that you want as evidence to share and relieve yourself from this future liability. This is where they can, again, share anything that they replaced, removed, or modified on the property, even if it was performed by a home warranty claim person. I didn't do the work, someone else did it. Guess what? You still disclose if someone else performed work and provide that paid invoice receipt. And is there anything done for water conserving or renewable energy, or like a solar panel? Any recurring maintenance like landscaping, pool man, you could put yes. Or you have an annual tree pest control services. Anything painted in the last 12 months, write yes. And if you write yes and you leave this area explanation blank, you're not actually filling it out to its entirety. Anything that you write a yes to, you just write a simple description of what you're writing yes. Oh, we painted the bathroom, we painted the kitchen, we painted the exterior in 2021. Go ahead and write it in here. So the seller, not you, the agent, seller fills out yes and no. And whenever you see a yes, go ahead and ask them to explain a little bit in detail, provide any reports or things that they want to share. Very important is water related and mold issues. There's usually always some sort of water moisture issue in a lot of homes, and they fail to disclose this. Okay. Any questions on this? This is where you get to talk about anything regarding the neighborhood or noise or dogs, or maybe there's a person across the street that just parks their car right in front of your house every single day, and they take up your public parking space. I mean, you can put anything you want that affects the desirability of the neighborhood right here. Yes. Okay. There could be homeless that pass by your street. Well, it's not part of my property, but hey, if you get homelessness and they pee in urine and defecate in your front lawn every other day, I would probably disclose that, because that's, even though it's not really part of your property or whatnot, you're disclosing something about the neighborhood that you're affected by, and it does affect the desirability. Walking out your front door and there's feces every single day. I mean, it happens. I've seen this a lot near public transportation areas, and your home is in a busier street. All right. Any questions on the SPQ? Okay.
I got a
Adam?
question.
Yeah.
Okay, for disclosure, for the seller, not the seller, the previous seller, the property is grow marijuana.
Yeah.
And do we still disclose, even like even the house been sell a couple of times?
Oh, that's a good question, Adam. I would probably advise use your discretion on this one. Okay. The fact that you have knowledge, I would say you probably now have to disclose. And I would probably say, how long ago was that tenant in there, or that person who sold it did it? That's one.
5 years ago.
Okay. Then the second subsequent question is, what was done to remediate this property? Did they fully take out the subfloors? Did they replace? I mean, I'm pretty sure they remodeled the whole thing.
Yes.
To what extent? So one thing that they do, if this was an insurance claim, they provide a full remediation report certificate saying that there's no mold in the area. This has been completely, blah, 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 blah. And that could help you. And the fact that it's not this current seller and it was done many years ago, most buyers won't care, because at least there's been a homeowner in between and it's many years ago. So I would probably still disclose it, because guess what? The one thing I'm afraid of is that noisy neighbor who talks to them. Oh, welcome to the neighborhood. Oh, did you know 5-6 years ago, the previous seller, yeah, there was this really bad tenant. They were growing marijuana. I could smell it everywhere. That's where they still have the potential to litigate or make a claim, because their child has asthma. And they're gonna say, oh, it got worse and worse because of you guys failed to disclose, and their attorney will prepare a case. I would have to say, because of that potential future knowledge, or maybe there's what's called a police history, and they came out and there was a police report on this property. If they just anytime went to the police and they asked for incident reports on my property, and there is a record in here, your seller is subject to being failure to disclose. Even if it occurred prior to the history, they can find evidence that your seller had knowledge because the prior seller was also being named on the lawsuit, and they're going to say, I disclosed it to the seller, the buyer right now. I can't help it if they didn't disclose that to you. I disclosed it. That falls on the person who failed to disclose.
Okay.
Okay. So that's my suggestion, unless you have, if it's like 30 years ago, I can see that, being lost in history. Okay. If it's recent in the last 5 years, I'm sure there's some neighbors that have this in their memory.
Okay.
And then I got to see the police report. If there's a police report on this, you should disclose it. That's the answer.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good question, Adam. Anyone else? That's the SPQ. We kind of covered the AVID, except I just want to remind you, you do not need to go in the attic. You don't need to go in the basement. You don't need to move any furniture or look under the rug. So with that given, all you need to do is walk room by room and look for defective things or items that may cause concern or triggers you to make sure you want to write this down and note it down as an existing thing for the buyer to review and understand, whether there's like a ceiling leak or cracks on the window, or maybe you see some ceiling separation, you can see some hairline cracks or trip hazards. You can see as small, even if it's cosmetic, go ahead and write dirty or scuffed walls, nail holes on the wall, cracked crown molding, carpet stains or urine stains on the carpet from pets or people. I don't know. There's all these different type of things that you're going to see when you come into other people's homes. But at the end of the day, if you see something, even in the bathrooms, I see that the faucets have little dark stains around the rings or the fixtures, faucet handles. A lot of times they haven't done a hard, deep cleaning, or all they got to really do is pour some bleach and some material to clean out some of that growing mold. But a lot of times they fail to change out the grout and replace it, or this and that. The small things could be done for maintenance wise. Go ahead and note it down here. There's a certain small case of sellers who are exempt from the disclosures of the TDS. So in that exemption form, you can provide this one-page disclosure if they are of the following. If they are exempt, that means that they're either they're an REO, they're a bank. They're number two, maybe it's a probate or a trust in which there's someone who's like a beneficiary or a trustee who's a recipient of property inheritance. And therefore, they may have limited knowledge about the property and don't have to disclose so many things like a normal seller would. They could be an irrevocable living trust. They could be what else is there out there? A power of attorney who's signing on behalf of a seller who's in their dying days in the hospital bed, and they have a power of attorney because their child is going to help them fill out the paperwork. Great. In those situations, they don't have to disclose so much, and you can have this ESD form. Nothing here says, oh, but I never lived on the property. Can I be exempt? That's not one of the requirements. They still have to disclose, even if they never lived there, because you could have knowledge. You can have tenants who report issues to you. Therefore, you might have some actual knowledge of defects. Oh, but I have a property manager. I don't know anything. Guess what? Even if you have a property manager that answers and responds to the notices, you have what's called good faith to read your property management statements. And you could see they deducted and charged you for repairs, maintenance, letters, requests, notices. Your property manager is supposed to keep you involved. Just because you hire someone does not mean you've erased the history or you erased your knowledge. it still falls on the seller. Okay. Simple one-page form, any death, any insurance claims, anything affecting the desirability of the property. In a transaction, the Fhda QS is used. I like this form because it does not have the Fhda language, which puts the seller's social security number on there. I don't want to share a seller's social security number on a document that's passed through many eyeballs, including escrow, title, buyer, seller, agents. You're spreading around risks that potentially could happen in terms of identity theft or hacking into emails. So I'd rather use the QS Fhda, whether you prepare it or whether the escrow officer prepares it. You just go ahead and prepare whether there's a declaration under penalty of perjury, whether or not they are a lawful citizen or a resident alien or a this and this and that, whether they need to withhold any withholding taxes when they sell the property. And then we get the common issues, the water heater, smoke detector. We're all familiar with this disclosure form. It is a requirement when you check the box for the seller to have the compliance at the bare minimum to have these safety standards in place. Okay, go ahead and let them know. And there's also the wildfire disaster advisory in the event that you're in a wildfire area that's high risk. Also add this form in. Form and let the buyers know so they have the advisory and they can also check these resources, which they never do, but you've given it to them. That's your duties. And the last thing is the final walkthrough. This is the form used to have the buyers within 5 days from close of escrow to verify the property condition is the same condition when they first offered on the property and executed an agreement. This is not a contingency of the sale. You cannot cancel a sale based on the VP. You cannot hold up a sale or pause. You're supposed to write and note down anything that has not been performed or any issues that you have a gripe, a complaint against the seller. And if in certain cases, you can ask them to make those corrections prior to you closing. But otherwise, this is just the section where you hopefully don't have anything to write here and the seller in good faith provided everything that was there in the beginning in the same condition. But Kelvin, when I purchased the property, the pool was blue. Now it's green. This has happened. I've had many situations where I told the seller, and I'm representing the buyer, look, seller, this house was blue, your photos are blue, I have my photos. Your seller failed to keep the pool man paid, and therefore we want you to return this back to blue and pay for that expense. That's possible. Oh, but Kelvin, the yard is, everything is dying. The bushes, the trees, the plants, they're all dead, the flowers. It's possible. You could, that's part of, these are all living appurtenances to the property. And therefore, the plants are also required to be maintained as well. So when you're representing the seller, make sure they don't cheap out and stop paying the gardener. Have them continue everything that they've been normally doing until close of escrow. Okay. I think that's it. I covered pretty much every mandatory statutory disclosure form and more. Any other things you want me to help you share on teach or learn while we're on this question?
Hi, Kevin.
Yes.
When we need to be the price on the SFLS form, square footage?
Whenever you see there's a discrepancy, even if it's 1 square footage. So if you happen to see the MLS and the profile report is discrepancy, or if they use builder as the source or taped as the source, those are the times you will use SFLS.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, great. I already explained in the last class last week, I said, when you buy a new construction, even if it's from like KB Homes or a big builder like Lemnar Homes, when you optionally upgrade Convert the den into a bedroom. You're gonna have, let's say, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and you have +1 den. Sometimes you can optionally convert that den to a bedroom at the builder's expense. You pay the builder the option. Guess what? When they record title and the blueprints, they don't change it. It's still gonna show 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 3 bedrooms. It's not gonna show 4 bedrooms, even if you paid for the upgrade. So that's an example. Even if there's no change in square footage, there's a discrepancy in the bedroom count. And that's also when I would use SFLS, because I want to make sure they know that here's my copy of my option upgrade. The square footage is exactly the same. However, I paid for the bedroom upgrade and they converted the den to a bedroom. However, title and the assessor's records don't know about it. They don't have the things, they don't have those changes updated, but it was done from the beginning by the builder. Here's my receipt. Here's my options package.
Okay.
Okay, because when you're selling it, if you're going to advertise it as a 4-bedroom in the MLS, you better have that document ready handy as a supplement.
Okay.
If you want to get the maximum value, because a 4-bedroom is worth more than a 3-bedroom.
Really, I saw so many different.
I know.
Like 4 bedrooms, 3-bedroom different.
I know they do this with the builders. You can pay for it. That's fine. It's legal square footage. You have a closet, you have a window, you have a door. Great. It looks like a bedroom, but it's not recorded as a bedroom, is what I'm saying. When they do that, add this den into a bedroom option. I'm just giving you.
I saw some, they disclose dimension in the MLS. So that is not enough, right?
Well, mentioning is fine, but I'm teaching here. So I'm teaching you it's better, it's best practice to show your supplement. Here's all the options we paid for when we bought the property. And this is where we've got the 4th bedroom instead of 3. So you could talk about it, but when I teach, I'm telling you how to do it right. And it's best to have it with that options form. Because that way it explains it and the buyers feel great. Oh, wow, cool. It's from the beginning. It's from the builder. Okay. It's not from the owner who added a wall. At least the builder did it to code.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. So that's all. Yeah, it's great to put it on the MLS, but it's even better to have the supplement. All right, guys. Any other questions I can help you with? I appreciate all of you guys staying to the end. Thank you for this being great, attentive, asking great questions. I appreciate that, guys. So have a great week. I'll see you guys soon. Next week, we're having our sales meeting. And thank you. Thank you very much.